We begin the second day of INFOCOM 2019 conference with a spotlight session on extreme customer centricity in this VUCA world. This session is brought to you by Intueri Consulting LLP. Intueri is a broad-based strategy consulting, corporate finance advisory, and research firm working on clients across the country and the world. Today, we are very privileged to have with us our spotlight speaker, Mr. Rik Vera, renowned thought leader, expert in customer centricity and change management, author of Managers the Day After Tomorrow. Before inviting Mr. Vera on the stage, I would like to say a few words for his introduction. Having gathered over 20 years of C-level experience in sales and marketing and general management in the manufacturing industry, Mr. Vera now inspires companies to develop customer-centric strategies fit for a connected world. Mr. Vera mixes years of business experience at C-level with humor and passion. In 2015, he and his business partners, Peter Hinson and Steven van Welgem, started NextWorks. They travel the world inspiring companies how to lead in the new digital world, taking business leaders to innovation hubs like Silicon Valley and China, ignite frustrated enthusiasts with innovative boot camps, but above all, they encourage companies to get ready for the day after tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Mr. Rik Vera.
Okay, good morning, India. This is my book. I'm not going to talk about my book. I'm going to talk about the subtitle of my book. And the subtitle of my book, and you can write it down, if you want to know the magic formula for the new normal, this is the magic formula for the new normal. I love formulas. This magic formula for the new normal says, connect to many and engage individuals at the same time. If you as a company can connect to many people, but at the same time give each individual the feeling that he or she is the center of the universe, you can never get disrupted. Your company will be ready for today, will be ready for tomorrow, and will be ready for the day after tomorrow. Your company is future-proof. You're ready for the new normal. But when I talk about the new normal, there has to be something like the old normal, because otherwise there would be no new normal. And for some people, the old normal was the normal. And for some people, I make it too complicated, I see it. Let me do a small test. Do you recognize those two strange artifacts? Who recognizes them? Okay, who knows the connection between the two? Who has actually done it? Okay, this was an age check, sorry for that. You're all old enough to know the old normal. Beware, because if you ask the same question to young people, this is what you get. See?
A demonstration on how to listen to a tape.
See, this is how they listen to a tape. Yeah. So, new normal, old normal. But we had a tsunami. We have been confronted with a tsunami. A digital tsunami has changed it all. The whole world has changed upside down because of a number of things that happened. First of all, those two lunatics, yeah? When they say the PC on every desk and in every home, let's face it, in the 80s, we didn't believe them. But now, we're kind of drowning in the number of PCs at our house and in our home. Who has an old iPad somewhere in a drawer? An old iPad that you've forgotten about. Okay, you can start recycling them. This is what you can do with an old iPad. See? You can use them in the kitchen. And they're even waterproof. And you can also use them in the dishwasher. Okay, this is what you can do with an old iPad. And then we got this. Who remembers this? The internet. Listening to the symphony of going on the internet. Remember this? When you did this, you had to steal your telephone line. It costed a shitload of money. When you had to download a document, it took you like 20 minutes. The rest of your family was angry at you because they could not communicate with anybody in the outside world. So you did it once or twice a day. Who is not on the internet now? See the difference? You did it once or twice a day, and now you're doing it constantly. But because of the internet, this is Time magazine of 2007. In 2007, Time magazine said, who is Person of the Year? You are Person of the Year. No longer a company, no longer a celebrity, everybody. Because you get access to all information. But we had one problem. We could only access information when we were sitting behind our PC. Now, we had to be given a super weapon. Now, it was not given to us. We paid like $500 for it, but it was introduced in 2007. Introduced by this guy who said,
So, iPhone is like having your life in your pocket. It's the ultimate digital device.
iPhone is like having your life in your pocket.
iPhone is like having your life in your pocket.
He was amazing. He was the best MBS ever, marketing bullshitter, but he was brilliant because we were watching it and we didn't believe what he was saying. Your life in your pocket. Now, it's hardly ever in our pocket. We kind of look at that device quite all the time. I want to do a test. Take all your smartphones. Take your smartphones right now. Okay, take them. Come on, you can take them. And take a deep breath. Because this takes courage. And now pass your smartphone to your neighbor. Okay, you don't want to do that. And I understand it. Because it's your life. You don't pass your life to your neighbor. These have become the three biggest fears of our generation. You know, the feeling, you go to sleep, you plug in your power supply, you didn't plug in too well, you wake up in the morning, you check your smartphone, the first thing you see is that you start your day with 7% battery power. The whole day is fucked up because this is your life in your pocket. I know for sure that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, everybody is going to look for power supply. Because if you don't have power, you don't have a life. We have turned into a new species, smombies. You all turned into smartphone zombies. You have become smartphone zombies, everybody. So forget millennials. I see too many companies that say, hey, Rik, we don't have to do anything because our customers have not turned into millennials. I said, forget it. We all turned into smombies, smartphone zombies. Even my father has turned into a smartphone zombie. He's 83. 3 years ago, he was a solution to my problem. I wanted a new smartphone, but my old one was still okay. So what do? You try to find a victim. Yeah? You recognize it. Who has done the same? Yeah. Okay. So I took my old iPhone, packaged it, gave it for his 80th birthday. He opened up the package and he said, I'm not going to use it. Now, with 3 years later, he uses everything. He runs his whole world out of his smartphone. He even tries to run my world out of his smartphone because he has made the family WhatsApp. He is the head of the family WhatsApp. Bad idea. Never do that. By the way, who has a family WhatsApp here? It's amazing, no? I would have asked that question 5 years ago, you would have looked at me and said, you're crazy. And now you're still. So you see how much your life has changed. My dad is on Instagram as well, and the whole world has turned Instagrammable. If it doesn't have a hashtag, it doesn't exist. Cities are no longer cities. Cities are the 10 most Instagrammable places in the city. People no longer eat food. We take pictures of food to put it on Instagram. That's what we do. People no longer walk into a museum to look at the painting. People walk in, turn their back, and take a selfie with the painting in the background. We do the same with politicians, you know. This is Hillary Clinton running for background, becoming the background for people's selfies. So if you want to feel important, I want to do this and take a selfie with you in the background. This is what happens. We put ourselves in the center of the universe. But as a result of that, because what do people do with a selfie? You spread it in your social media. So this is the result. 4 billion people worldwide that are connected. I can connect to you. You live in India, I live in Belgium, but we can connect. And I can influence you, and you can influence me. So for the moment, there are 4 billion people worldwide that are all influencing each other. So this is how the world looks for the moment, this cloud of birds. And we don't know where the cloud of birds is going to move because everybody is influencing everybody. So VUCA world, this is the reason for the VUCA world. those 4 billion people that are connected and all influencing each other. So that's the reason why our world has turned into volatile, unpredictable, complex and ambiguous. And we live in this world. We have to develop business models in this world. And that's pretty difficult. So I guess that the Mayans were right. You know the Mayan calendar? Who knows the Mayan calendar? Okay, what did the Mayans say? The Mayans say that the world would end on the 21st of December in 2012. Take your agendas, write it down. 21st of December 2012, the end of the world. You're still alive, luckily, but it was the end of the old normal. The old normal stopped by then, and the world tipped over into something new. But it was that digital tsunami that turned our world upside down. And what we do for the moment is that we're all questioning, is our business model going to survive? Is our business model going to survive this new world? And this new world is not here. That new world is somewhere in 2030 or beyond 2030. These are my 2 grandchildren. They will live in the new normal. They will live in a world in which maybe there will be no more car ownership. You don't need a driver license anymore. They might live for 120 years because there will be real healthcare. And maybe by 2030 we will have the end of Brexit. Maybe. So what you need to do as a company is to think about 2030. But that's difficult because we don't know what 2030 is going to look like. So you have to explore 2030, but you have to do something in the next 3 years to be ready for 2030. And if you want to be ready with something for 2030, then you need to move your assets in the next 3 months, because you don't know, you're not going to move if you don't start moving today, but we don't know what 2030 is going to look like. So I urge every company to go for slow architecture. You cannot make a plan for 2030, because I don't know how the world is going to look in 2030. So we have to build our companies like we built cathedrals in the Middle Ages. You started building, and while you were building, you discovered new building techniques, and you didn't say they didn't fit the plan, you adapted the plan. There's still one slow-built cathedral in Europe. So if you ever go to Europe, go and visit the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, because that's the last example of slow building, and that's the best example of how you have to build your companies. Do it with slow architecture. And why do you need slow architecture? Because we are in the twilight zone, the zone in between the old normal and the new normal. The old normal died in 2012, and the new normal is only going to be there in 2030. And we're in the in-between zone. And the in-between zone, that's the time of monsters and super creeps. You can develop anything. We've seen an example. The example was here. Last year, I had the opportunity to be speaking at a conference about big data and artificial intelligence. And one of the other speakers was Alexander Nix of Cambridge Analytica. Who knows Alexander Nix of Cambridge Analytica? Okay. It was amazing. He came on stage and he said, "We have disrupted American democracy. We have disrupted American democracy just like Uber has disrupted the taxi business. We have used big data and artificial intelligence to make American people vote," and he literally said on stage, like here, he said on stage, "We have made American people vote for this idiot." That's what he said. So he said, "Give me whatever product. With big data and artificial intelligence, I can sell whatever product to whoever." That's amazing. But then we were finger pointing, because 2 weeks later we found out that he had been using Facebook data to disrupt American democracy. And then we saw the confrontation between the old normal and the new normal. The new normal, that's this alien, Mark Zuckerberg, and the old normal are the members of the American Congress. Who has seen it? The interrogation. It was a charade, it was a circus. I mean, the old normal was not even capable of asking the right questions to the new normal. It was a laugh. I've got a very short fragment. I want you to watch very closely to the facial expressions of Mark Zuckerberg. First, he gets a question, and you see him is this really a question? Do I really have to answer this stupid question? And then he gives an answer, and then you have to watch the smile on his face. Oh, sorry. The slide is gone. Oh, it's here.
You said back then that Facebook would always be free. Is that still your objective?
Senator, yes.
Well, if so, how do you sustain a business model in which users don't pay for your service?
Senator, we run ads.
Now this smile. See that smile? That smile says it all. You can buy the t-shirt for the moment. The t-shirt with the most famous words of this century. Senator, we run ads. In other words, hey guys, where have you been for the last 20 years? Was it on this planet or on another planet? I'd show this to companies to tell them, don't become a senator. Don't become one of those senators that don't even know which question to ask. Because if you want to develop a strategy for this new world, you have to understand the new world. One of the guys that woke up in this new world and said, Jesus is this guy, Jamie Dimon. Does anybody know Jamie Dimon? Jamie Dimon is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. He's the best paid CEO in the United States. Base salary, 31 million on a yearly basis. It's not bad. On the 10th of April in 2015, he did a press conference saying, I lay awake at night. And then you say, okay, he's a bank director, so he lays awake at night because of bank crisis, because of world economic crisis. No, he says, I lay awake at night because of the startups in Silicon Valley. The startups in Silicon Valley are eating my lunch. The new world is eating the old world. And that is something new. And then he says something amazing. In 2015, he says, we did not see the digital tsunami coming. How can a CEO in 2015 say we didn't see the digital tsunami coming? He must have been blind, because the first digital wave was already in 1995, the wave of the internet. And then the next wave was the wave of social media in 2005. And then the next wave was the wave of the mobile and of the appization of everything, of the sharing economy in 2012. But in 2015, he said we didn't see the digital tsunami coming. I think that something else was the matter. It's this. I call that the beach chair model. Just imagine that this is your business model. Putting and renting beach chairs on this overcrowded beach, a red ocean, and everybody is operating in a red ocean. Everybody's got loads of competition. So what do? In the morning, you wake up a little bit earlier than competition, you steal an extra row, and you increase your market share. But for the rest of your day, you're locked up in your market share. So the only thing you can do is try to improve your business model. What is that? Smaller chairs, put them closer together, buy the chairs in China because they're cheaper, color them in fancy colors. The whole day, you're busy with your beach chairs. And then there is a tsunami on the way. And what happens when a tsunami is approaching your beach? Your beach gets wider. So what is your brain going to tell you to do? Your brain is going to tell you, wow, opportunity, let's put more beach chairs on the beach. That's what your brain is going to tell you to do, because your brain is programmed to do today what you did yesterday. You're not going to see that something strange is going on. And then you're going to look up and you're going to see that small wave on the horizon, and you're going to minimize the wave. You're going to say, yeah, but the impact is not that big, and I've got still plenty of time. That's exactly what happened to the big banks. That's exactly what happens to most companies. You know that the digital wave is on the way, but you think, oh, let's do what we've always done. And let's deal with it when it happens. Exactly what Jamie Dimon said. Let's deal with it when it happens. But when you're still on the beach, when your tsunami is hitting your beach, you're way too late. So my plea to you guys is, let's get off the beach before it's too late. Don't keep on doing what you used to do while you wait and while you see that the tsunami is approaching your beach. Don't make this mistake. That's the CEO of Nokia. 1 year after the launch of the iPhone, he said the iPhone is a niche product. He didn't believe in the iPhone. He minimized the wave. And this is the same CEO, 8 years later. He lost his hair and his customers, and he said, we didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost. We didn't do anything. Don't do that. Don't make that mistake. Jamie Dimon ends his keynote saying, we don't want to get Kodak by digitization. Now that's interesting, because I don't think that Kodak was killed by digital. Kodak was killed by something else. Kodak had developed this perfect roll film. Who has used one? Okay, perfect product, 100 years of engineering. And then Kodak invented digital photography. And Kodak said, you guys are never going to use digital photography. Digital photography is going to be a niche product. What they said is, this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. This is an app. You can download this app. It's called KD Pro. And if you have KD Pro on your phone, you turn your phone into an analog, good old photo. So what you do, you take a picture. You can only see your picture here. You click, and then your picture disappears on your roll. You can't look at your picture. Very frustrating. And then you have to wind it. Remember it, winding it? And then the counter says 21. So you have to wait until the counter says 0, and only then you can look at your pictures. No, you have to wait for 4 more days because they need to be developed. And if then they are developed and finally you can look at your pictures and you want to share your pictures through your social media, you cannot, because they're analog pictures and you cannot share them in your social media. It's nice to have on your phone, but you're never going to use it because it's too complicated. Who had one? One of those first digital devices. Okay, who had one? Okay, who killed Kodak? You guys. You killed Kodak. We killed Kodak because we traded the perfect film roll for these digital devices that were no good. 1.3 megapixel, it was not good enough. So who killed Kodak? Not digital. Customers killed Kodak. You guys killed Kodak. And for one reason, and that's the one reason that most companies forget about. It's not about your product. It's about your interface, the interface that you build with your customers. If your interface is faster, easier, more accessible, more simple, and more tempting, you win. That's what we learned. That's the lessons learned from Kodak. Always focus on your interface with your customers. Never focus on something else. Start with your customer in the center and then move to the technology. Don't start with the technology, so it's not digital. Digital is a tool to put your customer in the center. That's what we learned from Steve Jobs. Now the big question is, if we want to know what is the future, that's the big question. And we all know it. The future is made out of 3 forces. It is big data, artificial intelligence, and robotization. That's the future. The future is being made by those 3 forces. Big data, artificial intelligence, and robotization. Yeah, robots are going to take our jobs. Robots are going to take over all jobs that are simple and all jobs that are very complex. So, who's a manager here? Good news for managers. Robots are going to take your jobs. And so you will have plenty of time to play golf. Now, forget it, because robots are even going to take your golf game.
How about this? Yesterday, a robot taking a swipe at this, David, and what else would you expect here at the Waste Management Phoenix Open?
Really, that robot is called Eldrick.
How's this?
And both Eldricks have done that.
So, this is how the world is going to look. In the future, we will have a humanoid workforce in which computers, digitization, in which robotization is going to be part of the workforce. And one of the major skills for the future of all of you is to have people that are capable of working together with robots. Automation. See the automation as a colleague, not as something that is going to take your place, but as a colleague. Somebody is going to assist you in doing the right stuff. We're moving into the algorithm economy, and we're already in the middle of the algorithm economy. The algorithms already dictate who we're talking to. The algorithms already dictate what hotels we're booking, where we drive, what we listen to, where we vote for. That's already around us all the time, and it will change it all. But it's good news, because for the first time in history, we will not be afraid of digitization. Look at your existing business model. You all have an existing business model that makes you money. But we forget one more thing. It's not only making you money, it's only providing you with data. And use your existing business model not just to make money, but to collect data. Because the more data you have, then you have data that is raw materials for your future money for free. That's how you have to look at your existing business model, not just to make money, but also to make data, and then turn those data into algorithms with artificial intelligence. And then those algorithms will help you to reduce the cost of your existing business model. So you don't have to kill your existing business model, you can use your existing business model to build new business models and to do better processing, to better predictions, better forecasting, better diagnostics. All that stuff you will be able to do with your existing data. But also use your existing data to create new value propositions and to turn those into new money machines. Data is a new gold, but we have to start collecting it and measuring it and using it to do this, to put your customer in the center of the universe. The best thing you can do with data is to put your customer in the center of the universe, just like Spotify. Who uses Spotify here? Spotify is the best way to put your customer in the center. Spotify uses quite a lot of data of everybody, turns those data into algorithms that makes music personally, especially for you. Everybody that's on Spotify has got a different Spotify. So Spotify is like the good old record shop. You walk in, you get recognized, and you get the personal recommendations that fit you and you and you. And it's different for you than for you than for me. And that's what we want. We want hyper-personalization. We want connect to many and engage individuals. That's what we can do in the future. Using big data, using artificial intelligence, this is the future. Mass personalization. We went for a world in which we had mass production, and now mass production is going to be replaced by mass personalization. So your company needs to get ready for mass personalization. If your company is not ready for mass personalization, you will not survive the new normal. So that is what you need to do in the twilight zone. And it's going to be devastating. Take, for instance, mobility as a service. Mobility as a service, I have mobility as an app on my phone, and I'll make it very personal. This is the future. But think about it. It's very devastating, because now you have the mobility industry, but just imagine that I have to travel from Brussels to Berlin, 400 kilometers. Instead of taking a plane, I may take a self-driving car. And I will be able to sleep in my self-driving car and to eat in my self-driving car. So all of a sudden, that is devastating if you're in the airliner industry and if you're in the hotel business. So 2 or 3 separate segments, all of a sudden, all move into one big red ocean, because now everybody is going to move into mobility as a service. Hilton is thinking about moving into mobility as a service. KLM or Lufthansa or Emirates is thinking about moving into self-driving cars. So this is happening for the moment. All industries are blending into one big industry. Amazon is a perfect example. Amazon is competing with most of you, and most of you will be competing with Amazon in the future. So the future of all of you is a blurring of industry lines. All industries are going to melt into one big red ocean. Bad news. And the big ocean will be fought on data. It's all about data. But if you look at the fact that it's going to be one big red ocean, think about it. Maybe it's a blue ocean. Maybe it's a land of endless opportunities for all of you. I call this exciting times. There is an open market out there in between now and 2030. There are still no specialists. Even Amazon, even Facebook, even Google is not a specialist. Everybody can still become a specialist. It's full of low-hanging fruit, and the entry costs are low. This is the wet dream for every entrepreneur. All of you can conquer the world, starting tomorrow, and starting with the most important thing. Every industry will turn into the sex industry, with a C, customer experience. Everything will turn into customer experience. So if you want to know, as a company, am I ready to get disrupted? These are the 4 things that you don't need to do. First of all, make it complex for your customers. Make life simple for your customers. The second is no trust. Make sure that your customers can trust you. If you are transparent, then people can trust you. And the last is avoid too many middlemen. We like to do direct business with companies. We don't like middlemen in between us and the company. That's what we don't want. We all want this. None of us want bad sex with a company. And what is bad sex? It is you are not meeting my customer expectations. If you're not meeting my customer expectations, you're wasting my time. Most companies are happy with this. I call that boring sex. I ask you something, you do it, so what? That's nothing special. What we all want companies to do is this. Just do that little bit more than what I expect. Exceed my customer expectations. Give me wow. Most companies know it. Hardly any company does it. Want to create my well-being. What I remember of you as a company is not what you do, is not what you say, but how you make me feel. It's about my feelings. And that's why this is maybe the most important slide of today. That is, what do you need to become? You need to become my trusted advisor. I'm overwhelmed by this new world as a customer. I want you to help me. Be my heart. Be honest, be ethical, be authentic. Take your responsibility and be transparent. That's what I want you to do. And if you do that, I can trust you. And if I can trust you, you can be my guided company to make the world hyper-personal for me. The hyper-personal wave is the next one. But beware, you cannot design the customer experience because every customer is different. Not every child loves a clown. And don't overdo it. I stayed in this hotel 2 weeks ago. They wanted to create a wow, but it was a little bit too much because I went to the bar, I had a couple of beers, and then I wanted to go back to my room. It's not a good idea. Don't overdo the wow, and beware, every wow is different. So what I want companies to do is, you've moved from one-on-one to one-to-many. Then I became the center of the universe. Then everybody started to connect to everybody, and now I want you to do things hyper-personal for me. So we're back to the good old normal, but now help with the digital tools. What do companies need to do? First of all, at the end of the month, not just count the money that you made, but also count the data that you've collected. Because data is the gold, is the new gold. If you don't count how much data you have collected, you're not counting how much money you're going to make in the future. So if you know that data is a new gold, measure how much data you've collected. And don't use the data to upsell, cross-sell, or deep sell, but use the data, please, to know your customer better than you know yourself. And then to deep sell, cross-sell, or upsell. But first of all, try to know your customer better than you know yourself. I call that the red ocean strategy. Most companies try to develop new products for new markets. I urge every company, focus on your existing customers and try to take away customer frustrations of your existing customers, because that is where products and companies are being disrupted. Because Uber could have never conquered the world if the taxi business did a good job. So focus on your existing customers and always do this. Try to hunt customer frustrations. You should have a hunting committee in your organizations that hunt where do we leave customer frustrations. Because if there's a customer frustration, a company can come, solve that customer frustration and disrupt you in no time. Do it yourself. Do never fall in love with the solution like Kodak, but always fall in love with the original problem. What is the problem I need to solve from our customers? Not what is the solution, and try to incrementally improve the solution, but always fall in love with the problem. Always start with customer frustrations. I brought this guy. He is a good friend of mine, Ratan Chadna. And Ratan has started a hotel chain called Citizen M. And Citizen M is a hotel chain only based on the concept of taking away customer frustrations. So we listed up all customer frustrations in a hotel, and this was turned into the model for a new hotel type. Taking away those customer frustrations and turning them to customer delight. That's what you should do for your own company. Because if you do that, you engage your customers. And engaged customers become your sales and marketing department. They will sell your company and they will sell your product to other customers because they are connected. Make your customers hooked to your product. Read this book. It's not thick, it's an amazing book about how you make your customers addicted to your product. Involve them. Make sure that they are rewarded and that they invest in your company by trying to bring other people inside your company. If you read this book, you will see how it works. And find your future partners. If the world turns into a red ocean, you have to find the partners of the future and embrace digital. Urge all of your companies to not be afraid of digital, but use digital. Why? Because your customers are digital. Your customers live their life out of their smartphones. Your customer has turned into the Homo sapiens. And what is the Homo sapiens? Online merges with offline. We are the generation that went online once or twice a day, but now you're constantly online. And your online world is influencing your offline world. That's why, for instance, in retail, we want offline experience combined with online convenience. So it's no longer a choice between online or offline. Forget channels. It's becoming one big world. All channels blur into one customer experience in which convenience and experience meld together. And if you want to connect to other companies, do it with ones and zeros. So data help you to connect to other companies. And technology makes it difficult, it makes it easy to scale fast. This is Jack Ma from Alibaba. He says, if Walmart has 10,000 new customers, they have to build a new warehouse. If I have 10,000 new customers, the only thing I need to do is to put 2 extra servers. Make life easy for yourself. Technology scales fast. So use technology. This is the 3 formula. Technology first, red ocean strategy, engage your customers and create ecosystems, and then you can outrun competition like never before. This is the magic formula. Technology first, red ocean strategy, engage your customers and create ecosystems. Put your customer in the center of whatever you do. Create a circle of touch points around your customer and try to listen to your customer all the time. And if you do that, you can never get disrupted. So this is your business model. Put your customer in the center and then build your business model around your customer, not the other way around. Because if you do it the other way around, you will not win. And in between your customer and your backup, your solutions, your logistics, and your processes, there is the company culture. And most companies forget to focus on the company culture. In the plane, in between Dubai and Kolkata, I was watching this. Who's already seen it? Chernobyl. Okay, Chernobyl is an HBO series. If you have the opportunity, stream the first episode. And if the first episode looks like your company, scream and run. Because it's bad news. Chernobyl is all about this. The company culture at Chernobyl is inside out, top down, process and procedure driven, management by fear, and based on assumptions. And that is why this big disaster happened in Chernobyl. But by the way, this is not about Chernobyl. There is an Aalto University study about Nokia, written in 2008. Why did Nokia fail in the war for the smartphone? And the only reason is the company culture. Aalto University says the company culture of Nokia was inside out, top down, process and procedure driven, management by fear, and based on assumptions. And that is the reason why Nokia failed. So avoid this and turn this into a new company culture. All companies need to be outside in, data driven, connected, customer centric, and curious. Curious about the outside world instead of based on assumptions. We need more curiosity in organizations. Who's already measuring curiosity in your organization? Nobody is. But we all know that curiosity in fast changing times is what makes us survive. This is curiosity. That's my wife shopping on a Saturday afternoon, and that's me doing the shopping. Yeah? But it's not about man or wife. It's about curiosity. Most organizations are organized like I do my shopping. They know exactly what they want, they go and get it, and they walk out. Very efficient. But they have not seen the next big opportunity, and they have not seen the next big threat, because they were focused. We need more curiosity in organizations because at the end of our shopping, my wife has seen it all. I don't know how she does it, but she's seen it all. This is how we have to organize our organizations, and this is how we do it. That's the reason why we fail to see the next big opportunity, because we're so focused. We are driven by processes and procedures, and we don't have enough curiosity. That's why we need to develop a new KPI. So my plea to all of you is develop a new KPI in your organizations, the Net Curiosity Score. How do you measure how curious you are? How do you measure how curious your people are? And how do you measure how curious a company is? We need more empathy. We need more passion in organizations. We need more creativity in organizations, because otherwise it's never going to happen. In the twilight zone, we need more curiosity. And now forget this. This is not a tsunami. The title of this painting is The Great Wave. It's not a tsunami, it's just the great wave. So we need to think like a surfer. Be happy with the big waves. Try to get on top of it. Instead of waiting on the beach, be on top of the wave. And if you're on top of the wave, don't give up, because surfing is fun. And you can only develop the skill set to surf it while you're on top of the wave. That was all, folks, but for two more things. If you really want to put your customer in the center, there's two things that you need to remember. First of all, do never waste a customer's time. Time is valuable. Time is the only thing that we cannot buy. If you waste the customer's time, you're committing a crime. So never make your customer wait. Never lose time of your customer, because that is a serious mistake. And if a customer gives you time, make sure that your customer says, wow, that was amazing. I granted you my time, but you did something valuable with my time. So never waste time and make time valuable. And if you do that, you will never be disrupted. And now I have to thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rik. May I request you to remain on stage as we move into an interactive session. We also have with us this morning Mr. Ambarish Dasgupta, Senior Partner and Founder, Intueri Consulting LLP, who would be conducting the interactive session with Rik. Mr. Dasgupta really needs no introduction, but I would like to say a few words before he joins us on stage. Mr. Dasgupta is a management consultant with more than 30 years of experience and is the Senior Partner and Founder of Intueri Consulting LLP. Prior to that, he was the partner and the national leader of consulting of PwC and then KPMG, and was also a part of the India leadership team of PwC and KPMG. He is currently also a member of the State Public Policy and Strategy Planning Board for the Government of West Bengal and a principal advisor of WBEIDC. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Mr. Ambarish Dasgupta.
Good morning. Rik, I watched yesterday all your YouTube and social media presentations, and those were impressive. But I think real life, you are even more impressive than the real life. So today, face-to-face was really an amazing experience. The topic of this VUCA, and me being a lifer consultant, having never done anything else in life, so this intersection of VUCA and the consultancy just brings a little story in my mind, and I thought that I would just start with that. A CEO once wanted to hire a consultant, and he gave all the qualifying criteria that a consultant needs to have, like good degree, good results, good experience. But additionally, he also gave one more criteria, which is that the consultant has to be one-armed. He should not be having two arms. So unfortunately, or fortunately, one such brilliant guy, having lost one of his arms, when he got qualified, got onboarded, and then after being onboarded, he had the courage to go to the CEO and ask that, sir, may I ask that why did you keep that condition of having one arm? So the CEO said, I got so sick and tired of my previous consultant that every time he used to say something and that came with a disclaimer, but on the other hand. So this uncertainty factor is the on the other hand factor is the one factor on which we, the consultants, survive on. So thank you very much for giving this talk. My first question to you is that you spoke today as well as previously on the customer centricity in this VUCA world, that you know your customers well and apply all tools, technologies to know your customers well, stay close to them. But when you do that, you know your today's customer, but you have also been talking about day after tomorrow. Now, how would you really know your customers who come day after tomorrow, maybe 5 years or 10 years, because they might have already changed by their education, social, and all that. So how is this applicable on day after tomorrow's customers?
It's referring to what I call the slow building, the slow cathedral. I cannot predict what the customer of 2030, 2035 is going to be like. I know it's going to be completely different. Who remembers the financial crisis of 2008? Everybody, like it was yesterday. But if you think about the technology world of 2008, you didn't have a smartphone, there were no iPads, the whole world was different. And nevertheless, it looks the same world. So we cannot predict what the world in 2035 is going to look like. So the only thing that you can do is be close to your customers and build something for your customer today, but measure it all the time. Do constant A/B testing. Test, okay, I do this now, but let's try to do it a little bit better tomorrow and focus on the customer interface. Make it faster, make it easier, make it more accessible, make it more tempting for your customer all the time. And if you do that all the time, even if your customer evolves, then you evolve together with your customer. Jeff Bezos of Amazon says, the more the customer changes, the better for me, because I am closer to the customer than most other companies. So if you're close to the customer, then it's even an advantage if the customer changes very fast. But it all starts with be close with your customer today and use data all the time to know your customer. And if you know your customer, then if your customer is something completely different in 15 years' time, you would have evolved together with your customer. That's the answer.
Very good. So that means the framework is more important.
The framework and the process of being close to your customer.
Good. Since you have been attached to many of the management consulting organizations and institutes also, so if we can just go a little in the VUCA space to the macro variables of the world, like the economics or the politics. And today, this VUCA we are seeing in everywhere, because we are seeing the global economy subdued, there is a trade tension, there is a tariff war, and because maybe of all these reasons, the consumer sentiment is very low. I mean, money is going away from the emerging countries. Nobody is really wanting to spend much. The world's growth is quite stagnated, particularly from the consumption expenditure. Now, in such a scenario, in where the consumption is low, the customer sentiments are down at this point in time, do you still feel that these technologies, this framework of customer centricity will still be holding, or these holds only for good times?
I think that it's even the opposite. I think that I do agree that the whole market might be shrinking. Consumers are very confused. We're always talking about the empowered customer, but I do think that instead of the empowered customer, we've confronted with the confused customer, with a very confused customer, a customer that doesn't know what is fake, what is real, and has so many options that he's lost in the number of options. So that's why I said maybe the most important slide of today is a trusted advisor slide, the hard slide. Be honest, be ethical, be authentic, take your responsibility and be transparent so you can become the trusted advisor of your customers. And I think in a shrinking world, the companies that will win and that will even increase their market shares are those that help the confused customers with a central authority, with somebody they can trust, somebody that helps them to make choices. And I think that companies that are becoming the trusted advisor should be happy with a very confused customer, with a very confused world, because then you're the guiding star, and the guiding star companies are going to win.
Good. So we actually apply a framework called PASTEL framework, where there are 6 pillars: politics, economic, social, technology, environment, and legal, to measure the uncertainties. Now, what we are really hearing from you is that all the uncertainty that can be triggered by any of these 6 framework can be mitigated by the central theme of a customer centricity.
Yep.
So anything comes up from any of these 6, we don't care, as long as we have a proper framework to really
I
know
mean,
the customers.
in the end, the company survives not only all the external elements, but on how your customer reacts to those external elements, and how do you keep being in tune with your customer.
Right. Going to the marketing part of a product, we know the standard customer acquisition life cycle. From someone who knows nothing about me or my brand, has never heard about that, taking him through 6 or 7 steps to make him a concept called prosumer, that he's not only my consumer today, but he produces more consumers for me.
Yeah.
So 6 or 7 tasks of doing that. And we heard from you also that very intelligent intervention of technology in these 6 and 7 tasks, digital, AI, AR, VR, all can play a significant role in this personalization, immersive experience, which can make him a prosumer. Now, while I go into these kinds of personalization and really have such a huge amount of customer acquisition effort being put in, I need to also put so much of efforts and money in my supply chain, because what they are looking for, they need to get that in time within an affordable price. So my production things become hugely scattered, my supply chain becomes hugely complex with this kind of personalization. Now, but do you think that these cost of this customer acquisition, cost of this enhanced supply chain is actually increasing my product's cost, and therefore it is finally the consumers who will be basically paying an increased product because of my relentless effort to acquire him more and supply him in time?
I don't think that consumers are going to pay more. I think in the twilight zone, the zone in between the old normal of mass production and mass communication, and moving to a world of mass personalization, both in the products, in the services, and in how we communicate with our customers, and that will be ready by 2030. In the twilight zone in between 2012 and 2030, which is a pretty long period of time, I think that companies are going to make less money or make no money at all in this transition period. If you look at the companies that are already making that transition, the Googles of this world, the Amazons of this world, they're not really making money for the moment, but they are preparing for that day after tomorrow. And in the day after tomorrow, when it's about mass personalization and mass personalization in everything that you do for your customer, I think that this, we passing the tipping point, and the tipping point will be that at that certain moment, companies will be so strong and so close to customers that they will make money out of the data that they've gathered for the moment. And that's why we have to realize that this is a twilight zone, that if you want to do your day-to-day business, and if you want to prepare for the future, it's going to cost you money.
This reminds me of kind of an analogous situation of an incident from Trotsky, the communist leader. So just give it once, when there was the revolution coming up, and Trotsky made an arrangement with a factory in Georgia that at night that factory manager will surrogately, secretly be producing guns for him. So he asked him that, how many guns can you produce in such a manner secretly at night? So the factory manager said, maybe 3 guns, 2 may fire, 1 may not. So then he asked that, if by this I want to produce 1,000 guns, so this is the amount of time that it will take. But my challenge is that when you produce 1,000 guns, will the wrath or the fury of the rebels still last till then? Now, a similar situation is in the 21st century when a young man or woman steps into an ultra-luxury goods to get something which he or she wants, and if she does not get that at that time, his greed may also not last. So whether it was the fury in 1940s or it is the greed of a young man or woman in the 2020, I mean, it's the customer buying sentiment lasts for a short time. And therefore, you have to produce it within that time, otherwise you lose that customer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, one more thing. We are hearing so much, on the behavioral economics being used in market research or in marketing also. We got Richard Thaler got Nobel Prize also, and you have also worked on that nudge theory, behavioral, merging the psychological part of the consumers, and since there is so much of analytics, quantum computing available, it's scary sometimes that you really can very much influence a man or a woman what he or she you want him to do. You know everything. Even the game theory people, by this behavioral science, said that there is nothing of a person that we cannot predict. Now, my question to you is that, is this really theoretical, or this is also practically applied in today's large corporates in their marketing strategy?
It is happening for the moment. If you look at the big companies for the last 10 years, and I'm talking about the Amazons of this world, the Alibabas of this world, for the last 10 years, they've been focusing on gathering data. But I travel to San Francisco 20 times a year, I travel to Hangzhou like 5 or 10 times a year, I visit the Amazons of this world, I visit the Alibabas of this world. What you see that for the moment, they're not only engaging technological guys, but they're also engaging people that are into human science. They're engaging psychologists, because now they have access to all your personal data. They're going to turn your personal data into your psychological profile, and they're going to use your psychological profile to do stuff for you, to address you in the way you want to be addressed, and to make sure that they can sell as much as they can to you using psychological elements based on your data. Now, they can do that for loads of people. So they can connect to many and engage individuals to a very high extent. Now, there is no control, because we used to come from a world in which there was mass communication. But now there is no more mass communication. It becomes very hyper-personalized communication based on your psychological profile. And that can be used, but that can also be abused. So on one hand, it's going to make customer service and interfaces completely invisible, and that can be good for you as a customer, but it can also be very frightening, because they can influence you to a very high extent without anybody else knowing it. So it is exciting on one hand, and it's very frightening on the other hand. And if you ask me what can we do about it, I don't know, because I think it's too late to stop it. We can only hope for the best, and that those companies have got the ethical, the ethical values to use it in the best way and not abuse it. But I'm not sure whether that's going to happen, yes or no. But I don't want to end up today with negative elements, but this can be very negative.
Yeah, it sometimes really can be very scary, the way we get influenced and the way it is said that...
Well, we will be influenced to a high extent.
Yeah. One example, I mean, maybe a very primitive example, not a very advanced one, but Economist, the magazine, once, I don't remember the exact number, but just hypothetically once they started saying that the digital version of the Economist is like $25, but they wanted to sell the print version more, and said that the digital and the print version is $75. No one was going for the $75, and they thought about it and applied the nudge theory, and then they made that the print version is $50. So 25, print version $50, and the digital and print $75. Suddenly there was a spark on the digital and the print $75.
It's a perfect example of psychology. Offer people 3 choices, and make sure that one choice is, or that 2 choices are not the right choice, and people automatically go for the for the choice that you already knew that this would be their choice, but they think they made the choice themselves.
How scary. We come from a developing country. You are right now in India, where there are possibly 900 million people who may not be so much connected or may not be so much target customers of this customer acquisition, digital tools, trains, and all that. Now, it is also said with the digital maturity, the northern hemisphere of the world, which will be more faster adopter of this than the southern hemisphere, where the more the poor countries and the developing countries are more clustered. Now, but do you think that these tools, techniques, all these customer acquisition things are for all, or it is only for those advantageous communities of the world, more the richer or not so deprived communities of the world or the countries of the world?
I've got a double answer to that. The first answer is, yeah, of course, new technologies, new business models, if you look at the history, they're always starting in the mid to the upper segment of the market. So they will start in the more developed countries, and they will start even in the developed countries in the higher segment. Look at the introduction of the smartphone, look at the introduction of the internet, look at what Tesla is doing, for instance, with electrical cars. They're always starting in the top end of the market. But once it starts to become something that is more commoditized, and that's always the result, so it starts in the upper side of the market, but then it starts to commoditize, there is one big disadvantage of, I come from Europe, we have got one disadvantage in Europe, that is that we have our tradition. And once you have a tradition, you're in the beach chair model. It's so difficult to leave your tradition, even though something new is on the horizon, because you keep on doing what you've always done. So if there's a new technology, and if the technology gets commoditized, then it's the developing countries that jump onto that new technology faster than the West. Look at the adoption of electronical payments. In China, for instance, China has outjumped Europe big time. In Europe, we still pay with paper money. We still pay with plastic money. In China, the only method to pay each other is your smartphone. In Europe, we can only dream about that, and that's why we have to overcome a tradition. So once your 900 million, and that's quite a lot of people, 900 million people get access to technology, being the internet, being smartphones, being all that, they will outrun Europe like never before. So on one hand, it takes a little bit longer, but once they get access to that, they will be faster than Europe. So I come from Europe, and I warn European companies, if we in Europe are not careful, we will become the fourth world of the next century to come.
Actually, our population is 1.2 billion, 900 million is possibly.
Yeah.
But one very good thing which I got to understand from what you said is, and which is of course very evident today, that the marketing or the marketing research, this as a stream, is now having a very strong intersection with the psychologists, with neural practitioners, with politics, with economics, and therefore they all need to be anthropologists also sometimes, maybe historians. These are some of the functions which never possibly were considered as a function very ideal at a board level. But we are seeing a strong intersection of these things with the markets, which is like the MBAs or the strategy practitioners is having a very strong intersection of that. And that, I think, is also very much getting echoed in what you said.
It's something that we also need to realize in schooling of our people. It's not only technology, and it's not only human science, it's now the intersection between human science and technology and human science. But in schools, and I don't know how school system is organized here in India, but in Europe, either you make a choice for human science or you make a choice for technology. But there is no intersection. And I think that schooling needs to think about how can we create an intersection between human science and technology, data-driven technology and human science. And I think that the future of a country and the future of business lies in that intersection.
My last question for you is, in this huge personalization world with customers to be given that kind of a personalized treatment. One extreme end is when I read Jennifer Aniston's one quote, the film artist, the Jennifer Aniston. She mentioned that she loves Bitmoji so much that she doesn't, I mean, she was actually once asked that, which brand would you be most favoring in terms of dress, bag, and everything? She said, oh, I don't care for any brand because I love Bitmoji so much. I actually make my own brands, and even for my friends and relatives, I make their own brands too. So does it indicate that finally these brands who are spending so much money in acquiring a customer themselves will wither away, and therefore along with this customer retention techniques will also possibly be withering away with the brand itself. That brand itself does not exist anymore.
With the access and the fact that everybody can have access to social media, and that there will be more and more platforms on which people can sell their own products, there will be more and more platforms on which people can produce their own products as well. You already have textile companies that are no longer into producing their own brand, but that offer consumers to create their own brand on top of their platforms. And I think that this is also a result of mass personalization, that the mass personalization will not only be on the side of the consumer that wants to be treated like an individual, but every consumer can become a producer as well and will become a producer. So this is going to be a very scattered world in which companies have to move from being the central middleman to becoming the trusted advisor and becoming the platform on which people can express themselves, can be themselves, and can even be their own producers.
Thank you. And therefore, we need a strategy consultant.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks very much. In fact, today we are also launching a series of talks with 10-15 CEOs. And we are starting with you, which is having a live streaming on our Facebook also. The CEOs will be speaking on how they are beating this VUCA of the world. So we'll have it for the next 2-3 months.
But remember, guys, we're going to the twilight zone. Nothing that you see today is how the world is going to look in 2035. We all have the possibility to take the pen and to write our own scripts. And I think that is the most important message, that do not wait, do not sit, do not think that somebody will show you exactly what you need to do. Take advice and take the pen and write your own script. Because this is the advantage of the twilight zone, is that you can write your own business model. You don't have to imitate a business model. Everybody can write its own business model. As long as you're close to the customer, be responsive to the customer, you can write whatever you want and be a winning company in the next 10 years. Everybody.
Thanks, Rik. Thank you very much. And your answers were very clear, clarifying everything. Thanks so much. Bye.